Everyone, welcome to the Indie Show, a weekly live series for and with creative small business owners. Today is kind of a special show. I'm bringing in, I think it's one of the first times that we're bringing in an author and a co-founder of a pretty big business. So you guys, Garrett Moon is the co-founder of CoSchedule. Is that right, Garrett?
Yes, one of the co-founders. Yep.
One of the co-founders. And CoSchedule, if you're not familiar with, you should be. We'll make sure to save some time at the end to really cover all that CoSchedule does, because I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of business owners, especially if you're looking to kind of automate and make easier the marketing side of your business. But Garrett, talk to us a little bit about the story that led you from wherever you were before CoSchedule to writing this book.
Yeah. Well, how far do you want me to go? So I trained as a graphic designer. And so that's what I went to school for, art degree, and did some freelance work off and on. I think I finished about three quarters of a degree in marketing. So that was kind of my interest from the beginning, but always had sort of an entrepreneurial, bone, and had done all kinds of little businesses and startups, and started new groups and meetups and stuff quite frequently through college. So when I went into advertising right out of school, I worked at an advertising agency as a senior graphic designer and the creative department and web development and all those types of things for a number of years, but always sort of knew that I wanted to jump out and do something on my own at some point. So you kind of learn as you go. You learn a bit about how the business works, and then you just start to kind of feel confident in yourself and what you can do. And that's about the time that me and my co-founder at CoSchedule, we actually quit the agency and went and started our own agency, kind of our own small web development and marketing consulting group called Today Made, and ran that for 5 years before about 3 or 4 years before we founded CoSchedule.
Nice. And I know a little bit of your story from reading your book, and we'll get into that. But the business that you started and the business that you hoped would kind of catch on was not exactly what CoSchedule has turned into, right?
Right. So we started a service company. So we started a company that provided services to clients, creative services. So websites, a lot of custom development, application development, and then some marketing consulting services. We taught customers how to do content marketing, social media marketing, how to get an email program going, and things like that. So we were consulting for other companies. And for us, it was a great way for us to make an income, make a living, while we started exploring building software. So we always kind of said we started Today Made in order to fund our software habit, so we can, and all the domain names we were buying usually. But we actually wrote, like right from the beginning, into our business plan, into kind of our long-term goal for Today Made, is that we wanted 50% of the revenue to be service-based revenue from clients, and the other 50% to be product-based revenue from products that the company made and sold directly to customers. So for a number of years, we were working on that 50% on product. And we probably launched, I think it's over 10, but I kind of settled on that number, 10 different software applications or tools over the years that, some were just free, we just did for fun. Some we sold directly to our agency customers, and so they had some good money and business behind them. But a lot of them were flops, and a lot of them were just sort of these practice projects eventually that would lead us down the road to CoSchedule.
Interesting. I love it. And CoSchedule, for anybody who's unfamiliar, and I'm sure, Garrett, you can give such a better description of it than I can, but it's first of all, you guys have a number of free tools that I found to be amazing. So you've got like the blog post name. It's not a generator, but it's
we do a headline analyzer, blog post headline analyzer, email subject line analyzer, and then a social message optimizer. So you can kind of look at individual social messages, and we break it down for each network, and like how many emojis for Instagram does it take to make it a good post, and hashtags and all these different things. And all those types of things are just sort of these kind of fun projects that we do at CoSchedule, where we have the benefit. I'll start with this. Like CoSchedule, what the product itself is we call ourselves the #1 marketing calendar. But what it is it's a single editorial calendar where you can schedule blog content, email content, social media content, and see it all in one place. So everything that's going on in your marketing world, you're going to see on this one calendar. And then we provide a bunch of automation tools for project management, task management, and then social media automation. So if you have certain evergreen messages that you want to reuse and recirculate, we have great tools and stuff that allow you to do that. So it really becomes a one-stop shop, particularly for a solopreneur or solo marketer, where you're able to do everything you need to do in this one tool as much as possible. And that's what we wanted to kind of get rid of. We called it makeshift marketing, right? You have spreadsheets, you have calendars, you got 10 different browser tabs, you got, your content management system or your website stuff. So like we can't get rid of all of it, but we try to consolidate as much of it as we can into that one place. And so what that means is,
go ahead.
Well, we should finish on the free tools. Like what that kind of means is that we have all this cool data. Like we had millions of headlines, blog post headlines. We had social sharing data. How many shares did all those headlines get? Same thing for emails that people had sent. Same thing for social messages. And we just started using all that data and put it together and for ourselves started understanding what makes a good headline and a bad headline, and then pass that on to our customers through these free tools. So the website, we have several free tools. You can use them without logging in. You just you do require an email address the first time, but after that, they're free to use. And then if you wanted to take it further into an editorial calendar, you can do that. All the tools are built in right into the product as well. So
so the tools are great, and something that you get into in the book is that the reason why they're so great is because those details, that analysis really matters, and your tool is so helpful for somebody to write 3 to 20 different versions of the same message or headline and really optimize what that's going to look like. And so I think that's such a cool tool that you guys have made available for free. And you talked about CoSchedule as like an all-in-one marketing calendar. And I just want to speak as a business owner. It's so nice. I've learned how difficult it is when you're trying to manage and juggle different types of applications.
Yeah.
And so having that all-in-one space is super helpful as a business owner. And so thank you again to building the product. Let's talk about, so the book is called The 10X Marketing Formula.
Yes.
Real quick, why did you decide to write a book?
It's one of those things you kind of talk about it for a few years before you actually do it, because it's a daunting project. It's a big thing to get organized. But actually kind of felt like a really good time to do it. I had just gotten off kind of this, speaking at a few marketing conferences and just kind of hearing the buzz, like what was going on in the industry, what people were talking about. And, obviously we talk to customers, through our sales channels, through our customer support channels all the time. And I think one theme that I just kept hearing is just like the return, right? The results. Content marketing in particular, kind of sold us on this big promise. Like you create content, you create a podcast, you create a video show, you create blog posts, and everyone's just going to come and sign up for your email list, and you're just going to be able to build a business just like this, and it's all going to happen overnight. And it's going to be really simple. And I think like 4 years ago, that was true. Like if you could be particularly if you were the first one in your niche or your specialty to get out there and do it, you could make that happen by just being the person who was willing to publish. But the landscape has changed, right? It's much more competitive. And for businesses, if they're creating content marketing or creating content as part of their business, all of their competitors are too. So by just creating it, it's not unique enough. So we have to figure out ways to get beyond that. And even when CoSchedule got started, we started just like everybody else did, like all your listeners do. We started at 0. We had no page views. We had no email subscribers. We had no customers, none of those things. And, we're under 5 years in, and now we have nearing 10,000 customers, hundreds of thousands of email subscribers, and all these things. So it's kind of looking at saying, okay, well, what were the things that we did along the way that were the most crucial to our success? Like that really not just like improved our marketing and our results, but like gave us that like 10x growth, right? Yeah. This huge boost in growth where you all of a sudden you saw the growth curve kind of bouncing along and where it just changed and went like that. So we went back and looked at some of those defining moments in our marketing program. There are things that, if you're familiar with the CoSchedule blog, we share a lot of our success stories and what we find that works best, backed by data, very actionable stuff. And so a lot of it was already documented. So it just became out of kind of looking through our old content that I'd created and some of our team had created, putting it together and really giving people a formula for solving that problem of how do I actually get returns on this, right? I'm doing it. Yeah. I'm publishing the content. I'm taking the time, but where's my 10x growth? And we wanted to show everyone this is how we got there. And not just give them something to copy, but give them a formula and a framework that they could use to find their own unique path to that growth.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about both the book and also a webinar that I did from you guys is that, I mean, you guys are, everything that you do is so actionable, and I love it. From all of that stuff, even to your podcast that you guys do, which is called like the Actionable
Marketing Podcast, for sure.
But the web, I think it was the webinar that I went to that connected me with a Google spreadsheet that had that exercise of think about a project, a marketing project that you're doing or that you plan on doing, and you have a series of kind of steps and questions to ask about that really, it was so helpful to me to say, okay, like is this a 10x idea, or like you say, a 10% idea? And the questions that you guys asked really helped clarify what projects are worth our time. And I think a big part of what I learned was just the power of being different in your industry and zigging when others are zagging. And that's so crucial, especially in this creative space. As you may know, like whether it's like online retail on Etsy or like wedding photographers on Instagram, we're starting to get to a space where everybody's stuff looks the same. Like you can't tell one wedding Instagram account from another. And so trying to think about how to be different in a powerful way can be huge.
Definitely. And so, I mean, the two things, like the two ways you look at that, like you talk about 10%, 10x, you know, the first thing is like just thinking about what project am I going to take on, right? And in the book, we just break down to a really simple framework. It's 10x projects or 10% projects. 10% projects are good things, right? They're not bad, but they're good projects that will help you make an incremental improvement over what you're doing right now. And so that may come down to testing send times for emails. You know, like it's a fine thing to do. It's not bad, but really, like it's not gonna grow your business like overnight, right? It's a small improvement at best. And then there's 10x projects, and these are the types of projects where it just has the ability to take your business from here to just a whole nother level, and multiply your results by 10 times. Headline Analyzer at CoSchedule is a really good example of that. The Headline Analyzer is one of those things where, you know, I started as I just wrote a blog post about data that we had in our back pocket on headlines. Like, this is what we figured out. We looked at them. I think I said we analyzed 1 million headlines. Here's what we found. And it started there. And then I got asked to guest post, and I got asked on podcasts, and a bunch of people were interested in this. And then I thought, well, let's make this an algorithm and let's give it away for free. And that particular headline analyzer has been shared on social thousands and thousands of times, linked to from all kinds of blog posts. And we've gotten lots and lots of leads and new audience members just because of that one tool. So that's a 10x thing. And the key is you got to figure out, well, you got to understand that there will always be 10% items. And as marketers and business owners, we can really fill our whole day very easily with 10% items. And you've got to figure out, where's my 10x opportunity and how do I prioritize that? So we have a framework and a brainstorming process that you can use to do that. The spreadsheet, I think, is a free download with that chapter.
We'll link up whatever. Sure. I'll backtrack how I got it, and we'll have a link to that in the comments for anybody who's interested, because it's been a really great tool for me. Garrett, first of all, the one major 10% example that you gave in the book, and I think you've given in a couple other conversations, is that you guys have stopped proofreading your blog posts.
Not quite that. We haven't quite gone that far. So we don't fix typos.
That's what it is.
Yes. So we definitely do proofread, and we want to catch as much stuff as it goes out the door. But the point is that once it goes out the door, it's a done thing. It's a done project. Until we do have a process actually for repurposing and relaunching certain pieces of content over time, but that's kind of a different thing. Yeah. It's sort of this idea that if there's a a sentence somewhere where we use the wrong there, or it's just the wrong to, or whatever, just something simple like that. People will tweet us or they'll email our support channels like, hey, you guys got this, or they'll put in the comments, you got this, this typo on your blog post. So what? Basically, is what we say, right? And I get a lot of attention from that, right? I give almost every talk I give when I talk about we don't correct typos at CoSchedule, I get horrified tweets saying, you look unprofessional, it's going to ruin your business. And we've been doing this now for 5 years, and it's given us the exact opposite result. Because what we realize is that, when you're spending your time doing those types of things, and it's in many ways, it's much more a point about finding focus and staying disciplined towards your big opportunities versus it is about proofreading and the value of correcting typos. It's just that 10 minutes it's going to take for someone to find that post, go correct it, republish it, and then we all know about switching costs. We've heard all about that. Like when you switch from one task to the other, you lose 15 minutes every single time. So you wrap that all up. Every typo is costing you 20, 30 minutes of productivity. And we just say, you know what? We're not going to do that as a team. We're going to put that somewhere else and focus on our big opportunities.
I love that. And just to give an example of how that resonates with me, maybe a year and a half ago, I wrote a blog post that was basically in response to, I was seeing a lot of people. So again, I work with a lot of like Etsy store owners, and I was seeing a lot of people upset about the fact that Etsy was changing their algorithms, that people's sites were getting shut down because people were sending kind of meritless notifications of copyright violations. And in response to all that, I wrote a blog post. It took me about an hour and a half to put together, called "Your Business Needs to Break Up with Etsy." And there were definitely typos in it when I first posted it. But that didn't stop it from getting a bunch of shares and a lot of people from really identifying with it. And I really like that just concept a lot. Do you feel like there's any difference between this idea of 10% and 10x and like the 80-20 rule that's been kind of going around a lot in like entrepreneurial circles? Do you think that's two ways of saying the same thing, or do you think there's a distinction there?
It could be. I don't know if I've given that a lot of thought necessarily. But I mean, I think, it doesn't, there's lots of different ways to say the same thing in some cases, but I think that the way I think about it is, I guess let me think about it a little bit. Like, I think I would say it like this, right? Like the biggest challenge, particularly for an entrepreneur, is focus and staying disciplined to that focus, right? There's two things that follow on each other. You see all kinds of entrepreneurs out there, and we all start to describe it. You're all going to think of either yourself or you're going to think of a friend. I guarantee it, right? Like where they have 10 things that they've started in the last 6 months, right? They just start this, and they keep rolling from one thing to the next. And they end up spreading themselves so thin that they're basically working on a bunch of 10% opportunities all at the same time, right? They're giving a little bit of their effort to each one. And so that's one caveat of entrepreneurship. There's the other caveat in terms of marketing is that there are so many channels. You can be working on your Instagram profile. You can be working on Pinterest. You can be working on Facebook. You can be working on email optimization. Like there's so many things, and we get so hyper obsessed with each one of them in an individual level, right? And when you start to stand back and look at it, there's a lot of things that you're probably doing there that aren't really that crucial. Like that's just, at the end of the day, it's not going to make or break your business. It might make a small improvement, and so maybe it's okay, right? But we want to try to focus on, we wanted to work on things that are great, not just okay, not just are good. Like great is the goal. And,
I love that.
So okay, if you have those 10 businesses, right? Like which is the one that has the biggest opportunity? Or depending on how you look at it, which one's the ones that bring you the most joy in terms of doing, or that you're the most excited about, and just focus on it, right? And make that the one. And that's the same type of thing for these projects, right? Like what's going to give you the biggest result? There's your focus, and turn it off to everything else and be willing to focus on it.
Well, I love the concept, and I think that it's really fitting that you wrote it, because I think it really aligns with what CoSchedule is doing. Like I told Garrett before we hopped on live, I actually have a CoSchedule shirt, but it's in the wash right now, but it says schedule everything. And I really love that mantra. And I think it's so important as a business owner, I mean, yeah, you can kind of fit spontaneity and being flexible into your schedule, but if you don't schedule things, then like you said, then you have that switch mentality that you lose as you're just kind of going through the day without having intention about what you're doing, and you're losing the focus.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that is sort of a result of, if you're doing 10X planning, right, is that you're separate. I talk about separating the creation process from the strategy process, right? So, one of the ways to take 10X ideas is if or in terms of content production, like what blog post am I going to write tomorrow, or what blog post am I going to write next week? There's processes that we outline for how to generate those ideas, how to prioritize those ideas. But then I take it further and kind of go where we're going here, where we're talking about schedule everything, and talk about the value of saying, for the next 2 weeks, this is what I'm going to write about, or these are the videos I'm going to create. And I've decided, I've thought about it, I've made my decision, we're going with it, right? Because what it allows you to start doing is, now once you get to Tuesday morning, when it's time to write that piece of content, you're not looking at doing the blinking cursor problem, right? You're not staring at a blinking cursor in a text editor just saying, what do you want to write about? You've already decided. Now you're just going to focus on execution. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, it's like hard to separate those two things. You're kind of like combining strategy and execution, but you can really save a lot of heartache and headache if you can plan ahead. You sit down and, I'm writing about this and I'm just going to execute. I'm in execution mode right now, not in strategic mode. And so there's a big value in separating those two processes.
Love it. Let's talk for a little bit about a concept that I'm so glad you covered in your book, minimum viable marketing. Can you explain? Some of my viewers might not be familiar with like where that comes from and the idea of minimum viable product. But can you talk real quickly about what that is and why you decided to talk about that topic in your book?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a graphic designer and marketer by trade, but a business owner and business entrepreneur at heart. So as a startup founder, you read all the startup books. There's one called The Lean Startup. And I do an interview with Ash Mara, who wrote a great book on it called Running Lean. And so it's all about this process that startups can use so that they don't overbuild software, right? The most expensive thing we do in software is build it. Like, it takes a lot of time. It's slow. We all know about waiting on developers at some point. And it's just because it's hard and it's complicated work. And so what they really talk about in that is this process of build just a little bit of it, give it to your core customers, and then listen to what they're saying about the little tiny bit that you built, so that you can do a better job of building the next bit the next time, right? And so that all leads into sort of this iterative process, and you start with an MVP, a minimum viable product. So CoSchedule, I talked about before, is a calendar. It's fully featured, drag and drop. You can filter, color labeling, like everything you would expect a calendar to have. It took a long time to build that. It's very complex. It loads a lot of different things on it. So in order to build that, it would probably take us 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, right? And the threat to us as a company is we don't have any customers, we don't have any money. And so if we spent 9 months building that and launched it, and you, the customer, hated it, shame on us, right? So better than that, what we needed to do is start looking at and saying, okay, what are the assumptions we're making? Like when we were in this product, first of all, when we launched CoSchedule, we were assuming that our customers wanted to see blog posts and social media on the same calendar. Seems pretty logical, like they would want to do that, but how do I know for sure? So we actually built an MVP of just a Google Calendar. We just said, okay, connect your social profiles, connect your WordPress site to this plugin, and we'll give you a Google Calendar link of all the stuff that you have scheduled, and you can see a Google Calendar. It took us like 3 days to build, not 6 months. And all it did was help validate was, is this useful? Is it useful for you to see this view? Is it perfect? No, you can't drag and drop the events. Like there's a lot of things that it doesn't do right, but it allows us to validate that core assumption. And so minimum viable marketing is starting to take that and apply it to marketing as well. And so there's all these kind of things you can run into. I mean, if you're running an Etsy store, you can apply that directly to products, right?
Yeah.
Like you may have a great idea for a new product line, but and so you could go into mass production and build 100 of them, right? Or you could go really deep and handcraft a really perfect one. But maybe they don't want that. Maybe your audience doesn't want that type of product from you. And so, is there something simpler that you can start with that'll help validate that product idea is a good one? There's
a study that you cite in your book. Do you remember the details about, I think it's like the students in a class were told to like make a toy horse?
We had a toy horse example in there. I think
it just aligns with what you're saying.
I don't remember that. Yes, I remember talking about it. I don't remember it offhand, but I think like we were getting to there is a little bit in terms of like how to convert that concept to marketing efforts, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same type of thing in marketing, because if you have, let's say you had a great idea for a new course or a new ebook series or a new blog series, right? And I think it's just natural. Like you get these big ideas and you get excited about the big idea. And what you can do is sometimes you jump into creating the big idea. You slave away for months on the ebook.
Yeah.
And what I always say is don't do that. Like write your ebook one chapter or one section at a time as a blog post. And if your audience likes that series of blog posts, now you get yourself an ebook and you've kind of created yourself some value over time. So that's one option we cite. But it's sort of just saying, take your big ideas, scale them back, figure out how can I test this to make sure it's actually something I should put time and effort into.
No, I think that's so important. And I'm so glad that you extended it to marketing, because something that I found as an attorney who works with so many different types of business owners, especially creative ones, is that having that minimum viable mindset in general is just so helpful, because creatives are predisposed to being perfectionists and wanting everything perfect before they sell it, and having a lot of themselves in whatever it is that they're creating or a service that they're providing if they're super passionate about it. And part of, I think, being a successful business owner, especially if you're creative, is kind of turning the volume down on that.
Right.
And turning that instinct off, because like you said, you can get somewhere a lot faster if you just start acting. And I'm kind of selecting just parts of the book that really stood out to me. We talk a lot right now in the business space about failing quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think what you say that in the book, and then at some point you say, like, if you don't like the verbiage of failing often, just think about like iterating.
Learning. Yes, iterating or learning rapidly.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's essentially what people mean when they say fail fast. It's like learn quickly.
Yep.
Because failure and success, actually, you learn more from your failures than successes most of the time, right? So if you're going to fail, do it as quickly as possible, right? If CoSchedule is a bad idea, if that calendar that shows blog posts and social media is a bad idea and people don't want to pay money for that, then the sooner me and my co-founder know it, the sooner we can move on to something that people do want to buy. Yep. And that's the idea. Like, if it's not going to work, wouldn't you rather know it today than tomorrow? Right? Like if you could, you do something else with your time.
And going back to your marketing campaign, you might think that, I know CoSchedule has really long form blog posts and it's working for you guys. But it for another business owner to just think, you know what, we're going to do long form blog posting and we're just going to write 20 long, super, super long blog posts.
Right.
And put a lot of time, and then it might not work. Like you have to have those checks in place so that you're flexible and you can.
That's a great example.
Things out.
Then they'd say, "Oh, it worked for CoSchedule," right? I talk about in the book how one of our 10x changes was we actually started. Everyone in the industry was writing 1,000 word blog posts, 800 to 1,000 words. So we started writing 2,500 words, and we positioned our content as more actionable content. And those number of words forced us to be actionable. It also gave us a ton of SEO benefits. Yeah. But just because we did it doesn't mean it works for your audience, right? What you're trying to accomplish, because our goals are going to be different than your goals. You're going to measure your goals differently than we measured our goals. So it worked for us. That doesn't mean it works for you. So if you want to try it, great. Write one post like that, write 2 posts. And before you put it out there, say, okay, in order for me to really commit to this, I would expect that this post would what? right? Would it reach a higher level on Google on average than your other content? Like that could be your goal. Would it get more email subscribers? Would it get more shares? Like what's your goal and how are you going to measure if it's successful? And you say, okay, well, if this gets 100 shares, we're gonna try it again and we're gonna pursue it. And there you go, it gets 101 shares. Do it again, right? And see like is this something where if we did this all the time at the versus let's say we're gonna write 2,500 posts per week versus 500 to 800 word posts per week. We're gonna consolidate our efforts, going to consolidate our words literally into this one piece of content. What difference does it make? And so, you just kind of take one step at a time. And I think it's just getting away from like the genius idea. And at the same time, right, I'm talking about 10x results, but I'm kind of taking away from it. It's not about this as a one light bulb moment. It's about 10x marketing is about a pattern of behavior. It's like being really careful what you do, working on the right things at the right level and at the right time and getting them out there.
I love that. I want to, Kelly Dabb, a wedding planner extraordinaire, has a question for us. I'd love to hear Garrett answer what he thinks the future of content marketing is. Will we reach content overload? Will Gen Z read content? What does he think of the next wave of content marketing? Good question, Kelly.
Great question. I think we are at content overload. I mean, it's there, right? It's everywhere. And I think that's one of the crucial things you have to deal with as a entrepreneur now is if you're going to be using content as a way to grow your business, it's still totally viable, right? But there's so much of it out there. So 5 years ago, showing up was good enough. Being pretty good at it really would help you excel. But now you've got to find some other things. I call that competition-free content. In the book, there's some examples on different businesses that have done that. But more specifically to this question, in terms of like the future of content marketing, I think if you can start thinking of your content in terms of in competition with other content, you'll do better, right? If you think of the content you're creating as just marketing, right, or as just the activity that you're going to do, that's not going to be good enough. You have to start thinking about your content in competition with other content. So literally your marketing is in competition with other people's marketing, not just your business being in competition with their business. And so that really matters.
I like that. At the same time, again, in your book, one of the things I loved about your book was you injected so many great concepts into one. And you also talked about that red ocean strategy versus blue ocean strategy. And so, yes, you can think about the competition, but you're thinking about it in a way that says, okay, if this is what the competitive content landscape looks like, what is something that we can do that will allow us to be on a different level or playing field than what we're seeing?
For sure. And it's different everywhere, right?
Yeah.
CoSchedule, it was about more actionable content, longer content, and free tools that we started giving away. Like those are our biggies, right? I talk about a startup called Groove HQ, and for them, competition-free content was actually sharing their business metrics and telling their story as a business. Like, here's how many people signed up, and here's how we grew signups, and hey, we had a VC call, and this is what we told them, and this is why we didn't take VC funding. Like, they just had ultra transparency into their business, and they sold. One of their primary verticals or customer types was startup founders and startups. And so that content was very appealing to startup founders. So it was really successful for them. And so it's different for everybody. Yeah. But I think, you have to start seeing the competition, and that you kind of have to figure out what you can do that no one else can do. How do you differentiate your content is really becomes the goal.
I love it. So I do want to end on a note, bringing it back to CoSchedule and kind of taking into account what we've learned about 10X, about minimum viable marketing. If somebody, and obviously businesses are different, but if somebody were to sign up on CoSchedule today and they didn't really have much of a marketing plan, CoSchedule has a lot of features now at this point. Yes. Do you have either like a getting started guide that talks about the main features that people can use to kind of get the most power and kind of 10x the software? Or are there certain features to it that you kind of highly recommend that beginners kind of use at a foundational level?
Yeah, I think most users that we have starting to use the product, particularly if you're a solopreneur and running your own business and those types of things, what you're really looking for is to maximize your time, right? That's number one. And there's a lot of 10% time spent on scheduling social media and, in some of that type of stuff in particular. So I'd say the first things I would really tell you to look at is social campaigns and templates. So we have a feature that allows you to create a template for social media. And this is basically, you're going to say, hey, every single time I publish a new blog post, or I do a new Facebook Live, or I publish a new podcast, this is what my promotion schedule is going to look like. I'm going to send a tweet here. I'm going to post to Instagram. I'm going to send to Pinterest. I'm going to do all this on day one. The next day, I'm going to share it again. Third day, I'm going to share it again. And then 1 week later, I'm going to share it one more time to make sure it gets out there. Now, I actually advocate in the book, like, do this all the way out to 30 or 60 days. But we have other tools for handling that. But that template, you create that template, and literally every time you publish a piece of content, you hit add the template, and all of a sudden, all that stuff is scheduled for you. Like, we just plop it all in there for you. And you can, so it's CoSchedule. When we write a blog post, we schedule over 60 messages in less than 5 minutes. Every single time we publish. And that's just because we have this reusable template that we can use. It's a really powerful feature of CoSchedule. It's at every plan level, so you don't have to pay a bunch of extra money for it. And then the second thing I look at is Requeue. And Requeue is the tool that allows you to say, okay, find your most popular and best performing messages, or your evergreen content, your evergreen, stuff that it's always useful and good, and let's add it to a queue. And what we do is we'll actually look at your social feed, and we say, hey, this day you only scheduled one social message, and you told us you're willing to send up to 3. So we're going to go through your Requeue groups, and we're going to automatically pick messages to share. So we basically say we fill the gaps in your social schedule so that you have a consistent social presence all the time. Those two things alone pay for the tool, because you're saving a mountain of time, and you're adding promotion. And you're able to get more results. I mean, after that, start planning ahead, right? What kind of content you're going to create? Use the calendar. Fill out a week or two's worth of projects and content that you want to write, and start thinking about at least 2 weeks ahead strategically.
Yeah.
And spend 30 minutes every Monday, or half an hour, 45 minutes every Friday before you shut things down. Just planning out the next week, and being intentional about your strategy.
I think that's great. Now, and I know that anybody who's on CoSchedule, I think, knows that once you log in, there's a bank of resources and videos and things.
Yes.
Do you guys happen to have any either advisors on call, or CoSchedule trained people for people who really need to save time and money, and have actually somebody built out something for them on CoSchedule?
We do. That's a good, interesting question. We have a master class, we call it, right inside the app. And that's a 5 or 6 video set, about 5 minutes each video. Nice. And that is just product training, right? And you can kind of go through that at your leisure. And I really would recommend that. It's really helpful. It'll give you a head start. We also have a CoSchedule Academy that has tons of videos from our marketing team. And that's going to dive more into marketing strategy stuff, not just the software, but much more on stuff we're talking about today, like creating really great reusable social templates, like how to share blog posts with your audience and get the most return and the most traffic. And each plan that each paid plan at CoSchedule does come with a customer success advocate. So there is somebody assigned to that team that takes at least 5 to 10 calls with customers every single week. Or we also have demos or webinars that we do every single week, and those always have live Q&A as part of them. So tons of really good resources on learning. It really depends on what's easiest for your schedule and the best, how you learn. If you like watching videos or you want to interact with somebody, say yes when our customer success advocate reaches out to you and asks if you want to do a phone call, or jump on one of our demos and attend a live Q&A session. I
love that. No, you guys really have built an awesome program and a tool that lets business owners, whether solos or they've got a team, your software really allows that marketing schedule to grow with them. So super props. And again, thank you guys. Thank you specifically, Garrett, for the book. It was an awesome read. I've been recommending it to a lot of people. And thank you for your time today, man. This was great.
Yeah, always fun. Good stuff. Great questions. Hope it was helpful to the audience.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be manning the comments for the next 24 hours or so. So if anybody's watching the recording, I'll do what I can to respond quickly. And Garrett, again, thank you so much for your time. What we're going to do here is we're going to take all of this, eventually create a blog post around it pretty quickly. And then you and I can talk. And if there's anything else that we can add to that blog post to make it more valuable, I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it for this week, you guys. We're going to skip next week and we'll see you the week after. So have a great rest of your June until I see you again. Bye, guys.